Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which will be presented by myself. My name is Abby. I also have some colleagues on hand to answer your questions along the way. Today we're going to be looking at adding a new customer record in the Sage 50 Accounts software. Before we begin, for those who are regular to our webinars, will be aware how our sessions are ran. For those who are new to joining us, just a brief explanation of how it works. What you will see is that you'll be placed on mute when you join. That is so that you cannot speak directly to us during the webinar, and you will not be able to unmute yourself, but it will not impact your ability to hear us today. If you do have any questions, however, you can use the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen by clicking the option that looks like a little speech bubble with the question mark in the middle. This will open up the panel where you can send your questions across, where one of my colleagues will be able to answer for you. We also do have a handout for today. You can do this by clicking on the little button that looks like a little document with a folded corner. We would recommend downloading this as it does have some clickable buttons to some links on our help centre. So this is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to introduce you to the customer record. I'm then going to show you some of the key areas to fill out to create the customer record. I also have some hints and tips in the software as well I want to show you. And then I will finally summarise what I have covered on today's session. So I'm going to start by introducing the customer record there. So enter a customer record saves you time if you have returning or regular customers. It helps you manage cash flow through credit control and means that you have your customer information at your fingertips. It will save you time and help you organise your business and enables you to view transaction history. It's easy access to credit control and being able to email out statements. And it's one record for each customer. It holds personal information like company name, contact details and addresses. So as I mentioned earlier, you might have those returning or regular customers. Although there is no physical limit on how many customers you can have on accounts, we do recommend that you have fewer than 5,000 just to keep your customer module running smoothly. So we're going to move on to creating the customer record. So you have three options to create a new record in the software. You have new, wizard, and import. I'm not going to cover important records on this session, as we do have a separate session coming up on the 14th of March on how to import records in bulk if you want to get registered for that in detail. So I'm going to start with the new option. So you can use the new, which opens up a blank customer record, which if you have done this before and you know what details you need to fill in, you can go down this route. If you are less familiar with the process or new to the software, you might want to use the wizard option, as this walks you through each of the sections and is more structured approach. I'm now going to show you a new customer record. I will only be covering key aspects, as some do not apply until you've saved the record and start trading with the customer. I also want to make you aware that options within the record may differ depending on which variant you are on. So there may be features that are only available in standard or professional. If you are unsure what your variant is today, you can go to help along the top, into about, and then into license information, and it will tell you which one you are on. I am also going to be using demonstration data in the software today. So if you do want to try this yourself during or after the session, you can, as it won't impact your live data. So what I'll do now is I'll pop along to my software and I'll show you how to access that demonstration data. Okay, so just to let you know as well, some of the options I'm going to show you on today, my screen is a little bit smaller, so some of the options are going to be grouped together along the top of the toolbar, but I will show that in due course. So just, if you want to go into demonstration data, you're going to go to File in the top left, and this is if you're already in your company. You're going to go to Open, and you're going to go to Demo Data. If you're in a newer version of the software, it's not going to prompt you for login details. If you are in an older version where it is asking you to log in, you're just going to pop in manager as the username, and there's no password. And you can see now I'm in stationary computer mode, which is the demonstration data. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into customers down the left-hand side. As I mentioned earlier, because of my screen size, my options are grouped together, so you can see I have an option here. So what I'm going to show you first briefly is just the wizard. So you might have the wizard along the top, but in mine it's in my drop down, so you can see it's here. So we go into wizard. So you can see in here, it goes from options 1 to 7, and it goes through each of the options in more detail, and so it's a more structured approach. Once you're happy with that, you just click next on each one, and then you would save it at the end. But what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to use the new option. So I'm going to go back to new across the top, and then into my new. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with is the account reference. So I've got a new customer, they're called Simpson Solutions, and I need to add an account reference in here. So I'm going to type in here, SimpSolu. Now this can only be a max of 8 characters, so if I try to add anything else in, it's not letting me. Once you've created this account reference, it cannot be changed. You can delete the record if there's no activity, so you've not put any transactions or anything against it. But if there is activity, you will have to create a new one. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the company name. So we'll get in Simpson Solutions. If it's not necessarily a company that you're trading with and it's an individual, you can just add their name into this box also. The next thing I'm going to cover is the registered address, so this one here. So you can type in the address manually, so you might want to just type in like that. With version 29, you can now copy and paste addresses into this box by using this paste option here. So you might have a document, an email, an invoice, or something with a customer's address on that you might want to copy and paste from that document. So for example, I've got one already. I've got a document here. All I would do is copy that and then press this paste option, and it pastes that into the correct areas as well. So that's really specific features that it detects which parts need to go in which boxes. Once you're happy with the address, like I say, you would enter the VAT number, we call it the ORI number. There's another option here, addresses and contacts. If you're on the Essentials variant, you don't have this option, as it is only available on Standard and Professional. I'm not going to cover this at the moment because this is where you add additional addresses. You do have to save the record first to be able to access this option, so I will come back to it later on in the session. I'm now going to add in the contact name, so we'll just enter Joe Bloggs, and we're going to enter the number as well. Once you're happy with that information, I'm now going to pop into email settings and addresses. So this is where you can enter email addresses for your customers. In version 29 as well, you now have the option to enter up to 6 email addresses. You can also change the names of these fields as well. So although at the moment they state email 1, you can amend those, and I am going to show you that later in the session as well. So you can change that to however you want. So we'll just put this as email@sage.com. And that's the details section. So like you say, you can fill out more information. Only the ones with the asterisks are the ones that are mandatory, so that's why I've not filled out all of the fields at the moment. I'm now going to move on to the next section. So if you're a charity, you may see the donor tab. This is where you can add in donor information and membership details as well. And then we'll move on to defaults. So in defaults, we've got the first section, which is custom fields. So again, for version 29, we now have 6 analysis fields instead of just the 3. Again, these analysis fields can actually be changed, so you can change it to anything that applies to your business, because what's really useful about these is they can be pulled onto reports as well. Yeah, I'm going to come back to this section as well on how to rename those, because it applies the same as the email fields as well. The next section is pricing and discounts. So if your customer is eligible for discounts, you can enter into this section here. And then lastly on this section, we've got miscellaneous defaults. So in here, you can choose which nominal code and which tax code appears in the invoicing window by default when creating a new sales invoice for this particular customer. So if I, for example, it's at 402 at the moment, I might want it as 4,000, and I might want to change my tax code to T5. You've got some tick boxes here as well. If you tick these boxes, this means it overrides the product record for the nominal code and the tax code. If you leave these unticked, it will take it from the product record. And then, like I say, you've got the other parts that you can enter in here as well. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to the credit control. So I'm not going to be covering all the options in here. I'm just going to pick out some key elements. If you did want to know more information, you can visit our help center by pressing F1 on your keyboard when you're in this part of the record. Additionally, if you've got the version 29, you can press the help along the top right as well. So the first thing I'm going to cover is the credit limit. So the credit limit is what you agree with the customer. So let's example, we'll enter in here 5,000. Your settlement due. So this is the number of days they need to pay within to be entitled to the settlement discount. The settlement discount is the one below. So this is also known as prompt payment discount. So if they pay within those 30 days, for example. The next one is your payment due. So that's how many days that it takes for them to pay. And you can also select in here payment due from. It does default at days after invoice date, but you can click the drop down and you can choose from those options to see if there's another one that suits your business a little bit better. Once you're happy with all the information that you've added, in the very bottom left, you've got a terms agreed tick box there. You want to make sure you tick this once you're happy with, you and the customer are happy with your credit agreement. So that's that last part of the credit control. The last bit I'm just going to cover before we save the record is bank. So we'll just go to the bank tab here as well. So within here, you can enter the customer's bank details, but this is just for reference purposes only, but it's handy to have if you need to maybe process like a refund, for example. Once you've entered all the information, you are happy with the customer record, you can click save. Now, do not worry that I have not covered all the tabs down the left-hand side here. As I mentioned earlier, this is because some of the options are not available until you've created the record first. So I'm just going to click save. You can see now that has now gone to a blank record. So if I close here, you can see I've now got Simpson Solutions in my list. Maybe if your list is longer than mine, and it may take you a little bit longer just to look through the list, we do have a search function along the top where you can just type in the company name and it brings it up there. Alternatively as well, maybe you can't remember the name of the company that it is, but you've just got off the phone with the customer, you know that the name is Joe Bloggs. You can search just by the customer name as well, so the contact name, and it also brings their name up as well. Okay, so now I'm going to be going back to revisiting those tabs that I missed earlier. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a different customer record, as some aspects I couldn't cover due to the record not being saved and the fact that it has no transactions yet. So I do want to just show you a customer with some history on the record. So this time I'm going to go into A1 Design Services. The first thing I'm going to cover is the addresses and contacts. So as I mentioned earlier, this is where you can add additional addresses in here. So you can see I've got two delivery addresses, I've got a registered address, and I've got a contact address. If I wanted to add in a new address, I would click the new option here, and it allows you to enter all the information in here. If you wanted to edit an existing one, you can just highlight the relevant one and then click edit along the top. And you can come in and you can amend any of the information as long as it's not grayed out. Also as well, you can go into the option preferences here, and what you can do is, depending on maybe like you say like your statements, your invoices, I don't know, maybe it's your statements, you can choose which address they actually get sent to, and that necessarily might be like say like the email address. So I might want to change my statements from the registered address to the Manchester branch. So I would click on the drop down, I'll click Manchester branch, click OK, and you can see now the email address is updated. And what that happens as well is these will get pulled through automatically on the documents for what you come in and set them up as. So that's really useful as well. There's no manual change or anything. As long as you come and change it in here, it will automatically make those changes for you. So I'm just going to click OK. And that's the additional addresses and contacts. The next thing I'm going to cover is the alerts. So you can see in here, I've got two alerts set up. So I've got one for a password. So maybe it might be that your customer needs a password, so only that person with the password can place orders. We can also set up so they have a like a little notification at the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll just show you if I'm going to add that in new. So you can see in here, you can set it up for invoices, quotes, and sales orders. You can set it up as a pop-up message, which was my password, or I can have it as an embedded in the window at the bottom, and that is what my customer can only order in bulk of 100. So once you've created that, you would click save. And what I want to do as well, I just want to make sure that this one is active. So if you have made it inactive in the past, and you want to reactivate it, all you would do is highlight it, edit it, untick disable this alert, and then click save. If I then save the record, and what I'll do now is I'll quickly show you what that looks like in an invoice. So if I go into invoices and credits, and I go new invoice, and then I choose the relevant customer. So I'm going to choose A1 Design Services. So there's my password pop-up. That's the pop-up message. They give me the password. I click OK. I've got it. And then you can see at the bottom, this is my embedded message. So this lets you know that this customer, so anyone who might not deal with this customer a lot, they know that they only order in bulk of 100. Okay. So that is the alerts. I'm just going to go back to my customer record as I've got some more things to cover in here. So the next thing I'm going to cover is the communication history. So we'll just go into there now. So in here, you can record history with your customers. So for example, any letters you've sent, emails, phone calls made, any statements that might have been issued. So you can add that in here. So you've got your add entry, edit entries, and you can also delete entries as well. If you require more information on the communication history, it is covered in our statements and letters recording on our help centre as well, if you did want more information on there. We've also got the memo tab here as well. So in here, you can add in file attachments. This also applies to other parts of the programme as well. So it applies to suppliers, bank, nominal, products, projects and departments. Again, if you did want to know more information on here, if you've got the version 29, you can also click the help option in here. The next thing is activity. So we'll go into the activity tab. So in here, you can track history of your customer and any activity that has been posted against this record. So invoices, receipts, credits, that sort of thing. So you can see there. You can also add filters in here as well. If you come into this drop down, you can use a custom range. Then we'll move into the sales section. So in here, this is where you can see invoices, credits, balances, receipts and payments throughout the financial year. So it even breaks it down month by month as well, and also gives you the brought forward and the future. So this is talking about your current financial year. So that's what these figures will represent. Next, we have the orders. So this will just cover any sales orders that you've got created for this customer will show in this window. You can also create a new order from within this section as well, within the customer record. We've next got the projects. So in here, you can see any projects that are against this customer, whether they are active or completed. So it gives you a history of any projects that you put against this customer. And lastly, I just want to move on to the graph. So in here, you can see all your invoices, your credits and your balances in a graph format. So you can select what you see in the graph by clicking options along the top here. So we'll go into options and you can tick or untick the options that you want to see on your graph. You can also change the line graph to a bar graph or vice versa just by choosing these options along the top. You can also print this graph as well just by clicking the print option along the toolbar along the top. Okay, so that's the end of the demonstration for adding a new customer record. So I'm just going to click save on there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop back to my software. So just bear with me a brief moment there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start covering some hints and tips. So these are really useful, I think, little helpful tips that I think will open your eyes a little bit of what the software is capable of. Some of the options I am going to show you apply across all areas of the program. Some of them specific, but I will let you know which one is which. So I'm going to start by covering email and custom fields and how you use those. I'm then going to cover add and removing column headers, how to hide some options on the toolbar along the top. I'm going to quickly show you the chase depth view as well. And lastly, the batch changes option, which is only available on standard or professional. So what I'll do now is I'll just pop back to my software and I'll show you these. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is the email and custom fields. So we're going to go to settings along the top and into configuration. We'll start with email because that was the first section on the customer record. So this is what I mentioned earlier, where you can change the fields to say what you want for each customer email. So for example, email 1 might be purchase manager, and then you might have other people that you might deal with within that company. You can, like you say, you can have up to 6. Again, these do apply for the supplier record as well. But please be aware, anything that you do on these particular fields apply across the board for all your customer records, not just specific customers. The next one I'm going to cover is I'm going to come back to those custom fields. So that's where I went into defaults, and I could have up to 6 custom analysis fields. And these are the ones that you could pull onto reports as well. I'm not going to cover the reports today. We are potentially doing a session in the future on that. But for example, I might have on my customer record, I might want to have a region, so then I can pull on reports which areas my customers are from. As you can see, it's already applied on my supplier records as well. So you can see how these can be amended. Once you're happy with what you've entered into this area, you click OK, and that saves what you've just changed. And what I'll do now is I'll show you what that looks like on the customer record. So let's use the customer that I created at the start. So we'll come back to Simpson Solutions. So I open this up. You can see now on the detail section, under email addresses, email settings and addresses, there's my email, and there is the field that I've changed to purchase manager. So then you can have them listed more clearly in your program. I'll quickly show you the defaults as well. So if we come back into defaults, you can now see my custom fields You can see I now changed that to region. All the others remain the same as what they originally were listed as. So for example, I might want to say my customer is from the Northeast. So that's a way that you could utilize that feature, but they can be put, and you can put anything you want in these fields. It's entirely up to you. Use it as you see fit. And that is those two features. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the next little helpful tip, which is adding or removing column headers. So when I'm talking about column headers, I'm talking about this navy blue line here with all your headers across the top. And these apply throughout the program. So you've got invoices, you've got them in suppliers. So what I'm about to show you, you can do throughout the program. And all you need to do is right click anywhere on your mouse on the screen on here. As long as it's in the blue bar, right click, and you can actually add or remove column headers, but whatever it shows in this list. Now you can't add anything new to this list, and you can't remove anything from this list. You can only use what is the default in here. So it might be that you want to add in payment due. So you can see I've now got a payment due column. You might want to, for example, remove when the account was opened. You can see that's just dropped off at the end there. So you can add in more or less. It's entirely up to you. So you might want to add in an IORI number. Again, it's appearing there as well. Okay. Just to let you know as well, anything that you change within this bit here, so when you change these, add them in, remove them, this only applies to your user. So any other users would have to go in and make the changes that they want. It doesn't impact other users what you change in this particular part here. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to hide options on the toolbar. So it's kind of the same as columns, but when I'm referring to the toolbar, I'm talking about this part at the top. And as well as what I mentioned before, what I'm going to do here also applies to other parts of the program. So your quotations, your suppliers, things like that. So you can actually hide the options that you don't necessarily use. So you might want to tidy this up a bit and make it easier to find the options that you do actually use. So all you would do on your mouse, right click again, doesn't matter where you click, as long as it's in this toolbar, you would just right click and it brings up this list again. So you can see everything's ticked at the moment. But for example, you might not use price lists. So you can see price list has now dropped off. If I right click again, for example, I might not use the request payment option. I tick that off. So you can see now, I've now got full options for my new, my edit, my wizard, whereas before they were grouped together. So I can now see more options on my toolbar. To get them back, you would just right click again and then tick the options again to bring them back. And it's the same for the column headers as well. If you untick them, you just right click and then tick them again. In terms of the toolbar as well, there might be some options that you've seen on my screen that you might not have. It might be that it's already hidden. It might be down to your access levels if you're not logged in as manager, or again, down to the variant of the software you are using, such as Essential, Standard, or Professional. So the next thing I'm going to cover is the Chase Depth view. So that's this option in the top right here. So in here, you can change from standard to Chase Depth view. I'm not going to cover too much in detail as we do have a full session on our help center in our recordings. But in here, you can filter by who is outstanding, overdue, and more. So all you would do is you see this drop down here along the top, you click all, and you get to choose by a number of options. So you might want to see who's outstanding. You might want to see potentially who's overdue. At the moment, I only have one customer that's overdue. You can also change the columns in here, as I mentioned before. So if we put it back to all, if you right click on the column headers again, you have different options in here. So you can filter by, so you can add columns by like months, age older, and you can also add your analysis in here as well. To get back to the standard view, all you would do, again in the top right, you would click standard, and it takes you back to where you were. The last option I'm going to show you is the batch changes option. So if you use standard or professional variant of the software, you will have access to the batch changes option. Basically what the batch changes option is it allows you to change multiple records at once. So for example, if I want to choose Bronson Inc. and I'm going to go for cash and credit card sales. So I highlight those two. If I just nip into my drop down, I've got batch changes. Again, if yours is more spread out, you'll have batch changes on its own along the top. So I click into batch changes. I now get a blank record. You can only edit the ones that have got black text. So anything that's grayed out, you can't edit. So for example, I've highlighted those two customers and I want to mark those customers as inactive. We don't trade with them anymore. So all I would do is I would make the change. So I'm going to click inactive. I'm going to click save. So it's letting me know you've chosen to make changes to the multiple records. Do you want to save the changes? I'm going to click yes. That now closes. And you can see now in my inactive column, I now have a Y in 2 of those records. So that's how you make batch changes on there. If you deselect and you don't have anything selected and you go to use the batch changes option, it's grayed out. You must have customer records selected to be able to use the batch changes option. Okay, so that's the hints and tips covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop back to my slides there and we'll summarize what we've covered today. Okay, so we've summarized. So creating a customer record is for returning and regular customers. It helps manage cash flow and track credit. There are methods of creating a new record. 3 methods, I should say. We recommend fewer than 5,000 customer records just to ensure that your customer module is running smoothly. You can track activity of transactions. And you can also add alerts to invoices, sales orders, and quotations as well. And just to add on the back of that as well, you've got your communications, you've got your memo tab as well, so you can add in attachments into your record as well. I have also included some helpful links on the right-hand side of the screen there. Some of the topics that I have covered, so new customer record, how to do batch changes, which I can see Greg has mentioned there. It does apply to supplier records as well in there, but that article would give you more information on that. We've also got the Chase Debt module as well. I thought I'd add that in if I think it's a very useful part of the program, which I think people would find that very helpful. So this moves me nicely on to some upcoming sessions that we're going to do. So upcoming, we'll have some key topics to cover. So as you can see on the screen there, we've got remittances coming up next on the Wednesday, the 8th of March. And we also have important records as well. So that's the one I mentioned earlier on in the session, how you can import your customer and supplier records. That's that session on Tuesday the 14th at 2 p.m. We also have some other sessions coming up in the future as well. So we've got user management, nominal records, company credit cards and employee expenses. And we've also got running year end as well. If you have downloaded the handout, I have got a clickable button there, webinar registration. You can click that link and it will take you to our help centre where you can register for new and upcoming sessions. So just whilst we're waiting for any further questions to come through, I'm just going to give you some more information about the Sage members and what is included. So we offer more than just software. We offer great solutions to help your business flow and develop by bringing you as our customer into the Sage community and connecting you with brilliant industry experts. As you can see, you can get access to exclusive benefits such as masterclasses, learning, community forums, and much more. I'll not go into too much detail, but if you would like to know more, there is a clickable link with exclusive benefits on the handout if you've got that downloaded. There is another Bit of information as well, just regarding the Sage members masterclasses as well, if you are wanting to check that out. We do already have season 1 and season 2 available online. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Please feel free to stay around for the next couple of minutes or so if you are waiting for an answer to a question or have any further questions to ask. Just a reminder, we may not be able to answer all of your questions today, but you are more than welcome to visit our help centre where you can find most answers to your queries. If you've got what you need today and want to leave the session, you will receive an email in around an hour or so with the links to both our webinar schedule and today's recorded session for you to refer back to if needs be. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop myself on mute just for a moment, just so I can assist in answering some of the questions. I can see we've just got Sarah asking there in terms of why I had a customer that was in red. So what I'll do is I'll just pop you back to my software and I'll just briefly show you there. So the reason that I've got a customer in red is that my customer is over their credit limit. So it actually flags and makes you more aware that you've got a customer over its credit limit. So you can see the credit limit is 2,000, but the balance that they have on the account is £4,309.77. So it's just making you aware and bringing that to your attention. That's why it's in red. Okay, so majority of the questions have seemed to have been answered. So what I'll do now is I'll wrap the session up. I want to say thank you to my colleagues who have been on hand today to answer your questions. Thank you to all for your participation. Just a reminder, we have got plenty of sessions over the next couple of weeks, so don't be shy and please get registered. I want to say thank you and take care.